Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Your Mark on the World show. We have an extraordinary guest today with us. We have the chairman and CEO and founder of TriLinc Global, a huge impact investing asset management firm, Gloria Nelund, with us today. So you won't want to miss this episode.
Welcome to Your Mark on the World, bringing you another change maker with champion of social good, Devin D. Thorpe.
Gloria, welcome to the show. We're thrilled to have you.
Thanks. I'm actually really delighted to be here.
Well, thank you for taking the time. You've got a lot of great stuff going on at TriLinc. You've got $320 million of assets, all invested for impact under management. This is exciting stuff. Tell us a little bit about the firm and what makes it special.
Wow, that's a great question. The whole firm is really dedicated to creating and sponsoring funds that will prove to investors that they don't have to give up investment return to do good. Because our belief, and my belief when I founded the company, really is that we need to engage the private capital markets in this quest to solve big problems in the world. And we really want to use capitalism as a force for good. And so our whole firm is dedicated to doing that. And we've got some really unique things about our firm that I think help the industry advance in ways that other firms don't. We think there's a lot of firms doing really great things and we're playing one small role in it. But because of the way we've approached it, we think we're able to do it in a way that's really impactful. No pun intended.
Tell us a little bit about your investment thesis. If you were to, explain to an entrepreneur looking for capital or to an investor, what is your investment thesis?
Yes. So I'm going to say, generally speaking, we do believe that it is private companies who, if they are run well and managed well all through their life cycle, and they're held accountable to standards around environmental, social, and governance issues, and if they are committed to giving back to their communities and the world, then when they grow up to be big companies, and then ultimately become public companies in some cases, then they have the power to really change the world. And investors who invest in those companies actually are the power behind them because they are the capital. And so using that as a thesis, we basically design investment strategies to achieve specific outcomes around using investing as a way to change the world. So we have a private debt strategy that makes loans to growth stage companies that meet certain environmental, social, and governance standards and who are committed to creating impact. And then we provide loans to those companies so that they can grow and they can create more jobs and they can pay higher wages. And these are companies that have to be really willing to be held accountable to a higher standard. And so right now it's all private debt. That is not to say we wouldn't ever do other strategies, but right now it's all through private debt.
So when you are at cocktail parties and you feel an urge to brag about the impact that one of your companies has, who do you brag about and what's the brag?
Wow, that's a great question. I do actually talk about what we do as a company, and I talk about the way we make investments in companies that are committed to doing great things. And the one example that I often give is a diaper manufacturer that we've financed, for now over 4 years. That it's a great example of a small to medium-sized business that has the normal struggles of a small and growing business, but that really exists to solve not only solve a problem, but also to support the community where they've built their office. And so the founder of the company was a Peruvian American who worked for Kimberly-Clark. And when he was probably now 7 or 8 years ago, when he was in Peru, and noticed that there were serious health issues related to unsanitary conditions around cloth diapers in low-income communities where they couldn't afford disposable diapers, he decided he wanted to solve that problem by creating a lower cost disposable diaper using old technology that Kimberly-Clark had long abandoned. And so he moved back, started the company, and they got a partnership with a local, like a Walmart here, like a pharmacia that helps get the distribution out to these low-income communities. And it is working. It's one of those things that it's been a very successful story in some ways, not that they haven't had struggles. But when you talk to him as a business owner, he is so proud of the company and the people that work there. And so when they were really struggling at one point and we were working with them to try to restructure everything, his biggest concern was the people in the community losing their jobs because it was so important to them and their families. And so, we try to find companies like that that really care about the community and they care about the reason that they exist in that particular area of the world.
That's great. Now, you have an interesting element to your model that you told me a little bit about in advance, and I think there's something interesting here, and I want to explore it a little bit. But
okay.
You refer to this investment partner model as I think it's a sort of a fee-sharing model for the fund. Tell me a little bit about how this works.
I will, because it is very unique. And I don't know anyone else who does it this way, but I'm sure you're familiar with fund-to-funds models.
Sure.
And in a fund-to-funds model, you as a fund manager are investing in other people's funds, and then ultimately the investor pays multiple layers of fees, right?
Right.
Now, there are benefits maybe because of access and things, but basically it is it's multi-fees, but it's also not very customized because
sometimes they're called funds of fees.
Funds of fees. Oh, that's a good description. And so I didn't want to do that, but I also knew that we needed feet on the ground. If we're going to invest in developing economies, you don't want to be a fly-in investor, right? You need to know the culture, the legal system, the people. And so ultimately, we created a partner model where we went out and found the best private debt fund managers in the world, in the countries where we wanted to invest. And we developed a partnership with them where they would originate loans for us and for our funds. And so we actually co-underwrite and co-structure all of the loans. Typically, we fund the money directly to the borrower. We don't do it through any of their funds. We are often co-investing with them. And we get asked all the time, so how do we know that we're seeing the best deals, right? First of all, there are partners. They're governed by a contract that has a fiduciary standard. But beyond that, we actually have quarterly reviews where we get copies of all of their audited financials on all of their other funds. And so we look at every loan that comes into their other portfolios so we would know if there was something we weren't seeing. But to be honest, we just have great partnerships, and there is such a lack of capital for these businesses that there's just way more deals than anybody has money. And so, often between them and us, we can't even fund a whole deal. So we're looking for more capital. And sometimes we'll bring in one of our other partners to support a deal because we want to be able to make sure we're meeting the whole funding requirement.
Sure.
So it is a unique model. And then we just share our management and incentive fees with them. So there's no extra fees. They can't mark up the deal. We just share it because we think that's in the best interest of the investor.
That's really a smart model, and I, like you say, I haven't seen that done before, and so I appreciate you sharing that that strategy with us. I wonder if you would just tell me a little bit about what you think the key to scaling impact investing is. As you think not about TriLinc Global, but the industry and the world and the problems that impact investing has the potential to solve. What's the key to scaling it up?
One of the keys that we have to get right first is having a common language around what it means so that we don't confuse the investor. And then the second, I really believe, is education of the investor. And I suppose you did say one thing, but I suppose you have to have investable products first, right? Because you could educate the investor all you want, but if there's nothing to invest in, then what are they going to do? So I guess those kind of go tandem. You need to have products that really can generate market rate returns, but where the companies you're investing in are held accountable to higher standards. And if you integrate that into the investment process, it isn't additive, right? It eventually becomes the way everybody invests. And so I really do believe it's going to be creating those investment disciplines. And it's a little bit of investors have to want it. And then investment firms have to know how to create it. So it's going to be a little bit of both as we move forward.
One of the things I hear sometimes, both from investors reluctant to invest in impact and from social entrepreneurs trying to raise capital, is that you can't expect to drive real impact and have market returns. How do you respond to that?
Wow, I hear that all the time. And I basically say that's crazy, because if we, first of all, if you think about investors as a group, right? There's individual investors, both non-accredited as well as very wealthy accredited investors, and then there's institutions. And individual investors, non-wealthy ones, right? They can't give up investment return to do good because they need to not have their money disappear before they die. So they don't want to outlive their invested money, right? So they can't, right? If you think about it practically, you go, well, they can't. And high net worth investors, while there are some who are willing to give up investment return to do good, most of them are not. And I have a lot of personal experience with that. And I can tell you, they're not. They put it in their philanthropy bucket, and then they will use that to solve problems. And then institutional investors really can't, because they have a investment model that they have to follow, and they have beneficiaries that they have to meet the requirements for. And so if you think about it from the investor's perspective, you go, if we are ever going to use the capital markets and real private capital to solve problems, then we have to create products that are generating market rate returns, because that's the way we will attract capital. From an investment perspective, there are some projects, and I would say most of them are at the venture stage, where maybe you need to put some kind of non-market rate return capital into it. But that's what you could fund with the aid and development dollars or the philanthropy dollars. And if you are doing any kind of a real investment, there's no reason why you can't expect a real return, right? It's when you lower the standards on the investment side just to achieve impact that I think is baloney. And again, it's not to say that there aren't opportunities that should be funded by non-investment capital, but the majority of the investments, they're real investments. And you should hold companies to the same standard, regardless of the impact they create.
Yeah. Now, Gloria, you are revered in the industry. It's certainly looked up to by so many. who do you look up to as a role model?
Wow. I will say I have always looked up to my father. And in many ways, he was the impetus even behind my business model here, because my dad he worked when I was very young. He worked for Dayton Power and Light in Dayton, Ohio. And then he decided he really wanted to be an entrepreneur. And so the very first business he started was a flower shop with my mother in the small town that I grew up in. And they grew it to be very successful. They ended up selling it, and then he started 26 other businesses while I was growing up. And one of the things that I observed, and I would say probably more in retrospect than in real time, I realized, wow, all of my dad's businesses were very successful. And when he passed away, people who worked for him, people who were suppliers, people who were, consumers, they all had a lot of admiration and respect for my dad because he was an honest businessman. He really was very generous. He gave a lot back to the community and all of the people who made him successful. So, for example, when they sold the flower shop, he got really involved in building a swimming pool for our town and donated a lot of money for that. And so I look at even what we do now and you go, wow, if you find small businesses that are run by people like my dad, and I believe, the U.S. was created on people like that, and people all over the world have those same desires and ethics. And so, that really inspires me, I would say probably all the time, to say, oh, there are people like that around the world, and they really have the power to change the world. We just have to help them.
Excellent. Well, he sounds like a tremendous role model, and I thank you for sharing that. I wonder, did that influence your decision to create TriLinc Global in the first place? What motivated you to launch the firm?
Yes, it was probably more stubbornness than anything, but I had retired from a very successful Wall Street career in 2005 because I really felt like I had achieved all this success, but my life wasn't meaningful. And I wanted to have my life have more meaning. And so I've always lived my life by, there's a scripture that basically says, to whom much is given, much is expected. And I really felt like, well, I gave money and I did what I could, but I didn't have the time to really give in a way that I thought was meaningful. And so I retired and I thought, okay, now my life will have meaning. I will become a philanthropist. So I traveled around the world, got involved in causes I cared about. And, I discovered some things on that journey. One of them was that I was not made to be that person, actually. That business was my calling in life. And so then I actually said, well, then I need to figure out how can I do what I love and what I spent my whole career doing, and use all of my, my money, my contacts, my expertise to be able to make a difference in the world in a bigger way. And so that ultimately is what led to me starting TriLinc. I really thought, because I was retired, I was just going to help other firms do it. So I interviewed a bunch of firms. I offered them ideas on how to, this was back in 2007, 2008, before the whole industry started growing. And I was trying to help them. I would look at their material and go, oh, well, here's why you can't raise money. But nobody wanted to do what I was suggesting, which was you have to have a real investment discipline and an investment process. First and foremost, it's got to be a good investment. And they didn't want to hear it. And so I thought, oh, fine, I'll just go do it myself then. That's where the stubborn part came in.
Well, that's a perfect segue to my next question, Gloria. What is your superpower?
Well, if you ask me, I'd probably say my determinedness. Is that a word? No, probably not. But I'm determined. But if you ask anyone else, they would probably say that it is my endless energy. I actually was blessed with the need to not have much sleep. I can also travel around time zones and not be affected, which I've never had jet lag in my life. And I've traveled all over the world a lot. And I don't think I appreciated that as much until I got older. And I realized, wow, other people really struggle with this.
Yes, they do. Yes, we do.
And I don't. So I realized that's probably really my superpower.
Oh, that's great. That's phenomenal. Well, Gloria, we really appreciate you taking the time to be with us today. Tell us how people can learn more about TriLinc Global and connect with you personally.
Yeah, so we have a website. People can come onto our website, or they can. We do have a Facebook page, although I couldn't tell you a lot about that because I'm not really good on that. Or they could just connect with us through LinkedIn, or anybody is always welcome to email me directly. And my email is gneland@trilincglobal.com. And if you know any of our people on our team or you see their names, you can connect directly with them by using their first initial, their last name at trilincglobal.com.
And fantastic. That's wonderful. Well, listen, Gloria, we wish you every success in building your firm and in leading the industry and impact investing. And thank you for being with us today.
Well, Devin, thank you so much for this opportunity. It was nice to spend time with you.
All righty. Let's do some.
Okay. Thank you for listening. This podcast was recorded via Google Hangouts on Air and is available at youtube.com/Devin Thorpe. Subscribe to this podcast on Stitcher or iTunes by searching for Your Mark on the World. Every weekday, Devin hosts a CEO, celebrity, entrepreneur, or other changemaker here on the Your Mark on the World show to inspire and prepare you to make your mark. Devin is a champion of social good, writing about, advocating for, and advising people who are doing good. He is a Forbes contributor who is a recognized thought leader in social entrepreneurship, impact investing, and crowdfunding. To book Devin as a speaker, visit devinthorpe.com. Learn more about Devin's work at yourmarkontheworld.com.